सुखदेव का पूरा नाम सुखदेव थापर था। सुखदेव थापर का जन्म पंजाब के शहर लुधियाना में श्रीयुत रामलाल थापर व श्रीमती रल्ली देवी के घर 15 मई 1907 को हुआ था। वे भारतीय स्वतंत्रता संग्राम के एक प्रमुख क्रांतिकारी थे, जिन्होंने लाला लाजपत राय पर लाठीचार्ज तथा उसके कारण उनकी मृत्यु का बदला लिया था। इन्होंने भगत सिंह को मार्गदर्शन किया था। इन्होंने ही लाला लाजपत राय जी से मिलकर चंद्रशेखर आजाद जी को मिलने की इच्छा जाहिर की थी। सुखदेव भगत सिंह की तरह बचपन से ही आजादी का सपना पाले हुए थे। ये दोनों लाहौर नेशनल कॉलेज के छात्र थे। दोनों एक ही वर्ष पंजाब में पैदा हुए और एक ही साथ शहीद हो गए। सैंडर्स का वध करने में इन्होंने भगत सिंह तथा राजगुरु का पूरा साथ दिया था। यही नहीं, सन 1929 में जेल में कैदियों के साथ अमानवीय व्यवहार किए जाने के विरोध में राजनीतिक बंदियों द्वारा की गई व्यापक हड़ताल में बढ़ चढ़कर भाग भी लिया था। गांधी इरविन समझौते के संदर्भ में इन्होंने एक खुला खत गांधी के नाम अंग्रेजी में लिखा था, जिसमें इन्होंने महात्मा जी से कुछ गंभीर प्रश्न किए थे। Recent reports show that since the successful termination of your peace negotiations, you have made several public appeals to the revolutionary workers to call off their movement at least for the present, and to give you a last chance to try your non-violent cult. As a matter of fact, the calling off of any movement is neither an ideological nor a sentimental act. It is the consideration of the peculiar needs of different times that force the leaders to change their tactics. Let us presume that at the time of peace parley, you did not overlook the fact, even for a single moment, and did not make a secret of it, that this was not going to be the final settlement. I think all intelligent people would have understood quite easily that after the introduction of all the reforms you acquire, it would not be thought that the final stage was reached. The Congress is bound by its Lahore resolution to carry on the struggle relentlessly till the complete independence is achieved.
In face of that resolution, the peace and compromise is but a temporary truce which only means a little rest to organize better forces on a larger scale for the next struggle. The one possibility of compromise and a truce can be imagined and justified in the light of the above consideration alone. As regards the proper opportunity and the conditions on which any truce can be effected, it rests with the leaders of the movement to decide. In face of the Lahore resolution, you have thought it expedient to call off the active movement for the present, but nevertheless, that resolution stands. Similarly, as is evident from the very name, the Hindustan Socialist Republican Party, the revolutionaries stand for the establishment of the Socialist Republic, which is not a halfway house. They are bound to carry on the struggle till their goal is achieved and their ideal is consummated. But they would be quite apt to change their tactics according to the changing circumstances and environments. Revolutionary struggle assumes different shapes at different times. It becomes sometimes open, sometimes hidden, sometimes purely agitational, and sometimes a fierce life and death struggle. In the circumstances there must be special factors, the consideration of which may prepare the revolutionaries to call off their movement. But no such definite idea has been advanced by you. Mere sentimental appeals do not and cannot count much in the revolutionary struggles, since your compromise you have called off your movement and consequently all of your prisoners have been released. But what about the revolutionary prisoners? Dozens of Ghadar Party prisoners imprisoned since 1915 are still rotting in jails in spite of having undergone the full terms of their imprisonments. Scores of martial law prisoners are still buried in these living tombs. And so are dozens of Baba Akali prisoners, Deoha, Kakori, Machwa Bazar and Lahori. Conspiracy case prisoners are amongst those numerous still locked behind bars. More than half a dozen conspiracy trials are going on at Lahore, Delhi, Chittagong, Bombay, Calcutta and elsewhere. Dozens of revolutionaries are absconding, and amongst them are many females. More than half a dozen prisoners are actually waiting for their executions. What about all of these people? The 3 Lahore conspiracy cases condemned prisoners who have luckily come into prominence and who have acquired enormous public sympathy. Do not form the bulk of the Revolutionary Party. Their fate is not the only consideration before the party. As a matter of fact, their executions are expected to do greater good than the commutation of their sentences. But in spite of all this, you are making public appeals asking them to call off their movement. Why should they do so? You have not mentioned any very definite thing. In these circumstances, your appeals mean you are joining hands with the bureaucracy to crush that movement, and your appeals amount to preaching treachery, desertion, and betrayal amongst them. If that were not the case, then the best thing for you would have been to approach some of the prominent revolutionaries and to talk over the whole thing with them. You ought to have tried to convince them to call off their movement. I do not think you also share the general conservative notion that the revolutionaries are devoid of reason, rejoicing in destruction and devastation. Let us inform you that in reality, the case is quite the contrary. They always consider the pros and cons of every step they take, and they fully realize the responsibility which they thus incur, and they attach greater importance to the constructive phase of the revolutionary program than to any other, though in the present circumstances they cannot but occupy themselves with the destructive part of their program. The present policy of the government towards them is to deprive them of the sympathy and support of the masses which they have won in their movement, and then crush them. In isolation, they can be easily hunted down. In face of that fact, any sentimental appeal to cause demoralization amongst their ranks would be utterly unwise and counter-revolutionary. It would be rendering direct assistance to the government to crush them. Therefore, we request you either to talk to some revolutionary leaders, there are so many in jails, and come to terms with them, or to stop these appeals. Please, for goodness sake, pursue one of these 2 alternative courses and pursue it wholeheartedly. If you cannot help them, then please have mercy on them. Let them alone. They can better take care of themselves. They know that the hegemony of the Revolutionary Party in the future political struggle is assured. Masses are rallying around them, and the day is not far off when they will be leading the masses under their banner towards their noble and lofty ideal, the Socialist Republic. Or if you seriously mean to help them, then have a talk with them to understand their point of view and discuss the problem in detail. Hope you will kindly consider the above request and let your view be known publicly. Yours, one of the many young India, 23/4/1931, Volume 51, 6th January 1931, 28th April 1931, pages 477-478, courtesy Legacy of Bhagat Singh, booklet written by Professor Jagmohan Singh. Rise, untouchables, you who are the real social workers. Rise, you are the foundation of the country, the real strength. Sleeping tigers, rise and revolt. Bhagat Singh.
सुखदेव चेहरे मोहरे से जितने सरल लगते थे, उतने ही विचारों से दृढ़ व अनुशासित थे। भगत सिंह और सुखदेव दोनों एक ही सन में पैदा हुए और एक साथ ही अपना बलिदान दे गए।